So the challenge that I see with a lot of companies is they have this very basic ideal customer profile, right? And it's usually based on industry and size, because that's the one they can run the biggest list from with ZoomInfo, pick a database tool, right? And then they have these very bland personas where, Shelly, she's a CIO and she likes technology. And so call up Shelly, right? And so these kids really don't have, when a kid comes on board and they get given their ICP, they get given their personas, and they just regurgitate. They ask the basic questions without any real context around it, or without really any understanding of really what these people give a shit about. So what I think is yes, everybody needs to be on the same page, but you also have to involve the reps in understanding the true essence of what these people care about. Mm-hmm. Bring in a CFO of your existing company and have a lunch and learn, talking about what your CFO actually has challenges with if you're calling into CFOs. Do a Google search, holy crap, on best, CFOs, healthcare priorities 2018, read a few articles, that type of thing, so that you can understand what these people care about, so that when you're talking to them, you're not just reading through a route list of crap questions. You actually have some context around that and some understanding, so that you and you understand where your solution fits into that equation. Like, what components of your solution make a difference to that person based on that priority, based on where they are. Or what Keenan talks a lot about is like, what's the pain, what's the challenge that they're faced with, right? I talk a lot about priorities and challenges. Like, if you can't address a priority or a challenge for me, then the likelihood is that I'm not going to keep talking to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Ask the Expert Sales Edition panel discussion from HubSpot, focused on how to nail the start of your 2019 sales year. My name is Michelle Benfer, and I am a Vice President of Sales here at HubSpot. We have something very special for everyone today. We have three of the industry's leading sales experts here that'll be answering your burning sales questions. Now, a couple of housekeeping notes. The agenda we are going to go through today was built by sales reps globally and by the people who are actually watching this panel discussion. People have upvoted these questions to determine the order in which we will cover them over the next 45 minutes. The first person I would love to introduce is Keenan. Keenan is the CEO, president, and chief antagonist of A Sales Guy, Inc., one of today's top leading sales consulting and recruiting firms. He is also the celebrated author of Not Taught: What It Takes to Be Successful in the 21st Century That Nobody's Teaching You. And he has a second book coming, Gap Selling, which will be launching on December 3rd. All right, our next sales expert that we have is Lori Richardson. Lori is the founder and CEO of Score More Sales, a sales strategy, consulting, training, and coaching firm. And she is also the president of Women Sales Pros, the first online community dedicated to helping smart, savvy women get into B2B sales positions and to help companies find and develop great women sellers. Finally, our next expert panelist we have is John Barrows. John is CEO of J. Barrows Sales Training. He's a published author and a sales trainer to some of the world's fastest growing companies like LinkedIn, Dropbox, and Google. Well, all of these panelists speak all over the world, so we're lucky to have them share their advice on how to set yourself up for success in the new year. So, Keenan, I'd love to start with you. What telltale signs do you think a rep should look for to help qualify a prospect? Where do you think they should really start with qualifying a prospect?
Okay, so those are two different. The company itself, I'm going to leave that one off, but someone inside, so you've had some level of conversation. To me, it's really simple. Really simple. I break it down to four things. Number one, does a problem exist that your company can solve? Does the person or prospect admit there's a problem? Are they willing to solve the problem? And then finally, are they willing to go with you on the journey to solve the problem? Mm-hmm. That's it. That's all you need. If you've got those four things, you've got a qualified opportunity. End of discussion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Lori, what do you think about that? Because Keenan, I'm with you 100%, but sometimes it's the job of the seller to identify that a prospect actually needs your help. How do you qualify someone who may not know that there's actually a need that they have that you have to show them?
Well, one way that I would suggest is if you are working with people in a similar industry or people in similar roles. So if Keenan's talking about calling CFOs all day or VPs of sales, you know, Michelle, you have certain pains that if I can identify in other companies, chances are you might have that too. And so I might start with that.
Yep, that's a great approach. It's something that we use here all the time as well here at HubSpot is sharing, you know, what's that similar pain might be from other companies that are similar to the one that we're talking to.
On that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think that you tying all that together, and if we were to back out even to say, how do you qualify an account before you even reach out to them, right? Which ones should you spend your time on looking at, right? It's not just a list of, hey, between 10 and 200 employees in these industries. It's a lot to do with your case studies. So if you take the case studies or the existing accounts that you do really, really good business with, and you identify that ideal customer profile. And what I would actually do if I had my druthers, I would bring in the VP of customer success, the VP of sales, and the VP of finance, get them all into the room and start talking about what does a great client look like for us? Because the salesperson is going to say the one who spends the most money, the finance is going to say the one who's the highest profit, and customer success is going to be the one that's the least pain in the ass. Somewhere in there is that real ideal customer profile. And then once you find out what those nuances are, what technologies they use, what's the makeup of the teams internally, who's the competition in there, that type of stuff. Well, then you go look at, you know, you have your case studies, and then to Lori's point, you can take that information and use that to find new clients that fit that profile. So you can call into accounts and say, hey, the reason for my call today is we just showed this company in your industry how to drive these type of results, and you fit a very similar profile to that. I'd love to have a conversation. And then to Keenan's point, you can start asking questions that are very pinpointed based on that persona, because you know they have those issues and you know they have those challenges. So you can craft a whole message from the outreach to the qualification questions to the story you tell based on one persona with that ICP, and you have a chance.
Love that. So John, your suggestion is first make sure, you know, within your own company that you work for, that everybody's on the same page when it comes to who is a qualified prospect and making sure you know who that persona is.
Yes and no. So the challenge that I see with a lot of companies is they have this very basic ideal customer profile, right? And it's usually based on industry and size, because that's the one they can run the biggest list from with ZoomInfo, you know, pick a database tool, right? And then they have these very bland personas where, you know, Shelly, she's a CIO and she likes technology, and so call up Shelly, right? And so these kids really don't have, when a kid comes on board and they get given their ICP, they get given their personas, and they just regurgitate. They ask the basic questions without any real context around it, or without really any understanding of really what these people give a shit about. So what I think is yes, everybody needs to be on the same page, but you also have to involve the reps in understanding the true essence of what these people care about. Mm-hmm. Bring in a CFO of your existing company and have a lunch and learn talking about what your CFO actually has challenges with if you're calling into CFOs. You know, do a Google search, holy crap, on best, you know, CFOs, healthcare priorities 2018, read a few articles, that type of thing, so that you can understand what these people care about, so that when you're talking to them, you're not just reading through a route list of crap questions. You actually have some context around that and some understanding, so that you and you understand where your solution fits into that equation. Like, what components of your solution make a difference to that person based on that priority, based on where they are. Or what, you know, Keenan talks a lot about is like, what's the pain, what's the challenge that they're faced with, right? I talk a lot about priorities and challenges. Like, if you can't address a priority or a challenge for me, then the likelihood is that I'm not going to keep talking to you.
Yeah.
I got to figure out what those are.
Yep. I love that. And that also makes, you know, qualifying of a prospect, you know, in-house within a company, an iterative process. You know, you are always looking for, how is our process changing? How is our prospect changing? And how do we stay on top of it by keeping that feedback loop going? So
one tiny piece, I know you got a bunch of questions.
Yep.
That isn't said enough is it has to be focused on the problems your product and service can solve. We don't talk about that. We talk in the future state all the time. Oh, we do this and this. I'm only going to move. unless your product or service can solve my problem. If you don't know what my problem is, or your product or service isn't good at solving my problem, everything else is moot.
Mm-hmm.
And I've asked this question. I dare you to do it with your team. Ask your team, what business and technical problems does our product and service solve? And they can't say, we help marketers get more customers. That is not a problem. And I watch how many don't know what problem your actual product or service solves. Watch.
Yeah.
I don't even know. So there you go.
I love that. Keenan, let me ask you, kind of going back to some of this quality. One of the things that comes up so often with lots of sales reps is, how do I make my emails more effective? How do I make my voicemails more impactful? Are there any best practices that you coach to or that you're familiar with when it comes to really strong email subject lines, strong voicemails that will elicit a call back? What are your recommendations on that?
Oh, I love this one. To me, it's hard to execute, but the framework is simple as can be. You have to provide intrigue. You have to give something to the participant. Sales is a giving profession. We treat it like a taking profession, but it's a giving profession. So when I send an email, when I send a voicemail, right, or I educate people how to do it, and I talk about this in Gap Selling, what are you offering them? What are they going to get? Because every email has an ask. We got the ask piece right. I want 15 minutes of your time. I want to set up a meeting. I want you to do a demo. That's the ask. That's the take. We got the take like freaking brilliantly, right? It's the offer. Sometimes there isn't even an offer. Just come listen to me talk about me, right? So you got that of what are you offering? Is it inside? And by the way, it can't be information about your company. It cannot be that. So are you offering intrigue? I mean, are you offering intriguing information about studies that you've done? Are you offering unique ways to look at a problem they may have? Are you looking at new ways to restructure processes they're unaware of? Like, what are you going to give them for that 15 to 30 minutes? And so you need to sit down with marketing, you need to sit down with product, you need to sit down with whoever and ask yourself, what can we give? What can we offer our prospects that is valuable to them, that they're willing to give us their 15 or 20 minutes of time for? It reminds me of business law when I was a kid in middle school, right? The whole idea of a contract, you have to have consideration, right? So in consideration of their...
when you were a kid?
Say what? Yeah.
Business law when you were a kid?
Yes. 7th grade business law. I've never forgotten. Yes. In Massachusetts. Yes. It was great.
Oh, sorry. That threw me. So
yes.
I got to send my kids to that school.
Yes. And it worked. I remember it. And he was like, for every contract, there needs to be consideration and an offer. And I'm like, what? And so I've taken that in every email. You need consideration and an offer. If you're asking for their time, that is money. So what are they getting? What are you offering in consideration of their time? And it better be worth more than you're asking for.
And how can you boil that down to a subject line for them to open up? You know, because I get so many of these emails every single day where somebody is trying to get my time and they're telling me what they're offering me, but it isn't worth the 15 minutes. And so I move on. You know, how do you get them to even open it?
So I'm not going to. Like, you just answered your own question. Everybody's looking for that quick tip that, let me buy the putter or the golfer that's going to shave 20 strokes off the golf game. It doesn't work that way. If you have a really good offer in the email, then the subject line's a freaking cakewalk to write. If you can't write the subject line, it's probably telling you got a shitty offer. So yes.
I think you could do a couple of things, Michelle. You could do, and I'm on board with Keenan. Somebody told me this when I was, real young in sales. They said every time they want to get off of a conversation with somebody, they want to be able to ask them, would you have paid for this? And the sense that not would you have paid $1 million, but did you get enough value out of this conversation that you would have thrown a few bucks at it, right? Yeah. And you need to understand what your 2019 priorities are and how I can help you achieve your goals. Like, so many reps think that is value. I mean, how many cold calls do you get or voicemails? Hey, I'd just like to sit down and talk with you for 15 minutes about what your priorities for 2019 and how we can help you achieve your goals. That's a thinly veiled, I want to ask you a bunch of questions so I can sell you something, right? So a small thing and subject lines, what you can toy around with, and this is kind of the way I've been playing around with scale as far as messaging and targeted and that type of stuff when you said earlier, 50 dials, those type of things. or 50 activities, which personalization at scale is crap, I think, by the way. I wish people would stop talking about personalization at scale, because it's an oxymoron. Yeah. You can't be personalized at scale. You can be targeted at scale. And that's where I'm trying to go. So for instance, what I want to do is I want to figure out the persona that I'm going after, right? What do these people care about? What are their challenges or problems we're trying to solve, as Keenan said, and then ask questions that'll get you to think. Because my belief is that we are in a world where we are not, like, it is not our job as sales reps to educate on the features, functions, speeds, and feeds of anymore. It is our job fundamentally to get people to think. Because if you are comfortable with where you are right now, right, in the job and the role in the industry, I'm worried for you. Because artificial intelligence, some technology is going to come out tomorrow and all of a sudden wipe out an industry, all of a sudden make a job irrelevant. So what my job is to ask you a question or say something that's going to get you to pause there for 2 seconds and say, all right, you know what, tell me more about that. And that's where maybe, just maybe, Michelle, what you can do is ask questions in the subject line that pique my interest.
Yep. Yeah, I will say for me personally, I know personalization does go a long way when you get it, but it's hard to do it at scale, especially if you are at a company that is affording you a bunch of leads, and all those leads you got to follow up on, all those opportunities you got to follow up on. And so you really need to prioritize and pick and choose which ones are worth that multi-touch, approach, a combination of personalized video, getting that right message across, letting them know, someone else who went to their college, or what their college team is doing. That does go a long way. Doing it at scale isn't easy, but it is all about knowing the problem that you can solve and bringing that value into the sales conversation. So I'm right on board with all of you.